Morning, morning.
Morning. Morning. How's everybody?
So far, so good.
Yeah, I was heard you say he jumped off the 10th floor building.
What's that?
That's it, but some joke about that's what somebody was heard you say as they passed the 4th floor and they jumped off the 10th floor building.
Go down.
Looks like the weather is gonna break anyway,
Yeah, then rain coming. Thursday, I guess.
right? We need some more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did thing on like the Twin Peaks Reservoir. Looked pretty low.
Well, you'd be happy to know I remember the joke just this morning, almost a week later.
Back to you.
And I remembered it because of what Bob just said. So, this guy takes a job as one of the welcomers at Walmart. And he's phenomenal. I mean, the guy just exhibits everything that Walmart wants as far as greeting people and doing whatever they can to help them get in and make sure they find what they're looking for. But he's perennially late. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Now you know why it reminded me of the joke. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And so finally the manager of the store, calls him in and says, whatever his name is, Jim.
Bob.
I just want you to know what a phenomenal employee you are. We are so grateful to have you here. And make people feel so good, and it makes them want to come back to the store, and you know, I'm just so grateful. And he said, well, thank you. He said, but I just got to ask you a question. You know, what is it about being late? And he drops his head. He says, you know, I know it's something I'm really, you know, working on, and I'm just not having much success with it, and I apologize, and I'll try to do better. The guy says, well, that would be great, but I've just got one last question for you. He said, what's that? He said, well, you're from a military background, right? He said, yes, sir, I am. And he said, well, what happened when you were late, you know, and while you were in service? And he said, well, they would say, Admiral, can we get you a cup of coffee?
Thanks for letting me up. No, I just thought that was such a great,
And I saw it, I think my sister posted it, and she's a stickler for never posting anything that's not true. I mean, she'll go on Snopes.com and she'll research it, make sure whatever she's sending out is real. So I sent it to her, and I said, you know, is this really true? You know, was it an animal? And she said, I don't know, but it's a great story.
well, here's a good one. Reverse point, almost, not quite, kind of tangential, but General Eisenhower, as President of the United States, very frustrated sometimes, trying to ask him why he's so frustrated. He said, you know, I spent a career, especially the last part of it, giving an order, and I didn't have to give the order. I would think stuff and it got done. Now I give an order and nothing happens.
Yeah.
In the White House.
Yeah. One of my,
That's a true story.
yeah, that is a true story. Another, you know, favorite story of mine, my mom's, you know, my dad was a retired four-star. And there was one night, I mean, there are all sorts of funny stories I can tell you, but there was one night that Dad was, you know, whatever it is, he just kind of ordering people around in the house. And finally made the mistake of ordering my mom around. My mom said, you are no longer in the military, sir. Go get it yourself, or something like that. And all of us went,
You know why they call them the adjutant? I don't, this is a question, I'm going to rephrase it. The dog robber, do you know who the dog robber is? Your mom. That's the lieutenant that gets the gold beret, they usually major or even a lieutenant, sometimes a colonel, you know, the aide-de-camp. And they call them dog robbers. That may be peculiar to the CO, base CO at some places commands as a general, and it's a junior officer. And his job is dry cleaning, take the kids to school, whatever the general wants to make his life easy.
Right.
And if you do that,
But why they call him dog robber?
well, because they would rob a dog.
I got you. Yeah, my dad had a guy like that. He was unbelievable.
They train him out every year.
I don't think he was, well, he had, I'm trying, I feel bad, I can't remember his name now. I don't even think he was a lieutenant. I think he was a sergeant. But he was unbelievable. I mean, he went and negotiated, you know, buying a cars for my sisters. They both need to buy cars, so he took them to the dealership and negotiated sort of not a 2-for-1, but basically got them great deals. All right, so we are on.
Work out of your house?
What's that?
Did you work from home?
Afterwards?
No, well, even during, were you located on,
Oh,
Hey.
yeah. We were located at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He had several runs at Pentagon and what was called the T7 building back then, which was across from
or you didn't know
National
you
Airport.
came?
Yeah, and then he had two runs in Hawaii.
Nice.
One from when I was 8 to 12. That was a great 4 years. And then my junior and senior year in college, I got to go back for Christmas break. And then he became the United States, the Commanding General of the United States Army in Japan.
Wow.
Went to Camp Zama, and that's where I stopped. I never got there. That's when I put my roots down here and said, I can't keep following you guys. You're getting farther and farther away. Back then, there was no internet or anything like that. And then came back. It's kind of an interesting story. And for those of you, if you're listening, I'm sorry, we're off track. But Dad, when he had his second star in Hawaii, thought he was done. You know, we were talking, had one of these, you know, sort of, you know, really kind of father-son talks that didn't happen a lot back in that day. And he was telling me he was looking for what he was going to do next because he was going to have to retire. And I said, well, why? And he said, because from here on out, it's political. The third and fourth star are political appointments, and there's no way that I'm going to, that President Carter is going to approve me, because Dad was always, Carter was trying to demilitarize, and Dad was trying to do what he needed to do to protect our country, and I guess they, met loggerheads kind of thing. And interestingly enough, Admiral Guyler, who was the Pacific Fleet Admiral, recommended Dad for the Camp Zaman job. So my dad got it, which was an automatic 3-star. So he got his 3rd star, and within a year and a half, he was turned to Army Materiel in Alexandria, which was an automatic 4-star. So the thing was to retire to being at the pinnacle of his career. And the one other story that probably one of the proudest stories I have my dad is we're watching the Gulf War, Desert Storm, and the Scud missiles kept on being fired and getting blasted out of the sky by the Patriot missile. Not one of them hit. They got in the sky and they were gone, right? And my dad said, this makes me very happy. And I said, why? He never talked about anything. I mean, he did some amazing things. He sat at the console when the first Minuteman rocket went up. That we've got not itinerary, but the dialogue. And there's Captain Guthrie, talking in the midst of this missile. He did an amazing thing. But he said, this really makes me happy. I said, why? I said, because back when Jimmy Carter was president, they tried to kill Patriot missile program. And I nodded, but I took money from here and put it over here to keep that research going. If I hadn't done that, we wouldn't have that. We didn't have that technology. That's awesome. And with that, his son is going to teach you about listing agreements.
Nice segue.
Yeah, exactly. And without this, you will never have gotten that. Years from now, the ripple effect of learning what we're going to learn today.
It was rockets and listings.
Sure, let's figure that out in mind.
We're on page 3, number 5, under owner's duties is where we ended last time. And I don't know if anybody is watching us, but we're glad you're here, if you are. Basically what you've got in the listing agreement, we've talked about this before, that the listing agreement and the buyer representation agreement are exactly the same in their outline. But one's for a buyer, one's for a seller. So both of them have when does it start, when does it end, who's it with, how am I going to get paid. And then what's important and what we're getting into now is what is the buyer's duties in that exclusive representation and what is your duty as their agent, all right? And what we're doing today is we're looking at from the seller standpoint. And I think it's an important thing. We're obviously not just talking about the words here, but we're talking about how to practically apply this stuff. It's important for you as you begin to hopefully get more listings and work with sellers to realize that all the work is not yours, okay? If you can learn that and communicate it in a way that makes sense to your client, in this situation, your seller, or in another situation, your buyer, you can stay focused in on the things that you're supposed to do versus what the owner's supposed to do. So in this situation, owner shall work exclusive with the broker during the term of the agreement, comply with the reasonable requests, and we'll come back to that, of broker to supply any pertinent information or personal data needed to fulfill the terms of this agreement. All right, so reasonable requests of broker, what kind of things can you think of that would be reasonable requests that you've entered into this relationship, they've hired you to market their house to get it sold. What reasonable requests could you make of that seller that they should have to comply to? What jumps out at you?
Clean up their house.
Okay, very good. That when you're going to hold, when there's going to be people coming through, we literally want you to vacuum yourself out of the house. Tomorrow, I'm doing maximizing an open house. One of the things you want that seller to do is have that house not only spick and span when you get to that open house, but lights on, music on, everything ready so that you can walk in and start doing what you need to do, and that's marketing the house to get it sold. So absolutely, straighten the house up. An example of that, kind of cool example, is that maybe a house that has kids in it. So, the reasonable request is, the kids' rooms need to be straightened out.
Yeah, fingerprints off, crayon marks off.
Right. You might even, I know that, this has been great for you guys, but that wallpaper's got to come down. Or we really need to, prime that, the crayons and everything and repaint this room, that kind of thing. An agent that worked for me years and years ago, she used to have the parents leave the room when she was done and say, I need to have a conversation with your children when I can. And she'd sit down with the children and she'd write out a contract that if they kept their house clean, they'd all get paid $100 at the time that it closed. This is your job. Go ahead.
I never thought about that. I wish my parents had thought about that in 1967. While I was sitting in the room with my parents, a real estate broker, and a couple considering buying this house in Rockville, Maryland, they built and then sold and moved out to Cook County. She's sitting there, and the people ask what the price of the house is, and I'm sitting on the couch, and they say the price, and I go,
You gotta be kidding me.
Robert, please go upstairs. So a conference with the kids is a brilliant idea. And bribe them. Bribery is, not bribery, that's illegal. It would be an inducement. It would be cooperative.
Hiring.
Bribing.
Hiring. And again, and I'm sure, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure, that she already had a conversation with parents to tell them what she was going to tell them. She didn't say, leave the room and I want to talk to your kids. In the process, she said, when we get done here, I'd like to have a conversation with the kids. And I'm going to help you in a way that, that you've never been helped before in regards to getting your kids interested in helping get the house. But anyway, so absolutely clean house. What other things jump out at you?
Declutter. Accretion, especially in older people and people who've been in place for a while.
Get their paperwork in order.
There you go. I need your most updated mortgage information. First trust, second trust, home equity line, whatever. We want to get that information. So if you've got the most recent one, give it to me. If not, can you send something to your mortgage company? Ask them for a mortgage verification form. They can give them a payoff as of a certain date. So absolutely, paperwork. Michael, a plat, floor plan, any of those things.
Prior listing contract.
Power listing contracts.
Share.
MLS, the MLS, how it was marketed, before.
Once you get that prior listing agreement, you should have this legal address. You should have a lot of things that have already been done.
Yeah. However, be careful with that
Gotcha.
because they could have written it out wrong.
Right.
But having that information is awesome. Maybe it's the first time it's being sold since they bought it. They bought a new home. It's the first time it's being sold. They should have the whole new home package with floor plan and all the models and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, just those are reasonable requests, and what's happening here is the seller is agreeing to do that and to provide it for you. Pay broker the compensation set forth in this agreement. Make the property available during reasonable hours. Potential purchasers view properties and inform all purchasers and licensees whom contracts of owners, brokerage, relationship with brokers. So let's go back to the first one. As you're going through this listing agreement, you don't want to be talking about commission until the end, okay? Even though it's already been there, it's at the beginning, it's number 3. What you want to do in this situation is to say, I want to walk through this agreement with you, and then when we're done, and should you decide that I'm the person that you want to list with, we'll talk about this. And the reason being is if they're all about discounted commission, and you don't want that to be the beginning of the conversation. You want to get through this and explain to them the agreement and what you're going to do for them, and how you're going to market the house and that kind of thing. And then, so everything being equal, Michael, you're the guy we want, but we'd like to talk to you about reducing your commission. Okay, we'll do that at the end. So you're saying to me that if we work this out, you're going to hire me. Yes, okay, well, then we'll talk about that and work that out. And here's just another place to say, whatever it is that we agree to on page 1, number 3, that you're agreeing that you're going to pay that because it's set forth in this agreement. You're going to make the property available during reasonable hours. Well, okay, let's talk about what are reasonable hours. And some people's reasonable hours are different than others. You may not be aware of this. The lockbox can be programmed to only open during certain hours.
I wasn't aware of that.
So let's just say I really don't want anybody in my house before 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's reasonable. I really don't want anybody in my house unless I agree to it after 5 because it's dinner time with my kids and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's reasonable. So you could actually program the lockbox from, that it doesn't open until 9 o'clock and it won't open again until 5. Now, that doesn't mean you can't allow them to see the property, but you're going to be in control of that at that point. Somebody's not going to just walk up to your door and, put that, keypad in and get the key out, okay? But if somebody's going to say, well, I, only want it shown on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 2 and 4, well, that's not reasonable.
Yeah.
We're trying to sell your house, and depending on where you are in the market, we want really good access. And we'll talk later about the fact that we want a lockbox. And we don't want to do it by appointment only, because you're limiting somebody who's out showing property on a particular afternoon, and they run across your house that they hadn't known was on the market, and you're not home. Well, they can call, make sure you're not home, and then, show the property, whereas if it's by appointment only or with 24 hours notice or whatever, you lose potential buyers because some people are only in town for 24 hours. And therefore they no, you can't show it till tomorrow. Well, these may be the people that would buy your house, but they're not going to see it today. So everybody is different. We talk about not being in the gray, but this is gray. Everybody has a different idea of what reasonable is, right? But the communication that you're having with the seller is this is a partnership. If you choose to work with me, if you choose to allow me to market your house to get it sold, then we're going to become a team. And a team is going to talk about strategies and how we're going to go about, reaching our goals. And so we're going to talk about price. It's ultimately your decision. You're the seller. But I'm going to give you information as to where I think the range is that you should be thinking about. We're going to talk about access to the property. I'm going to tell you ultimately it's your decision. But I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do to make your house as available as possible. I'm going to ask you for permission to be totally honest with you, so that when I get feedback that you may not want to hear, I can give that to you. And when your back raises up and the hair stands up on the back of your neck, I'm going to remind you, wait, you told me I could be honest with you. I could give you the feedback and that you want it. Because if you don't get that feedback, I can't really market the house the way it's supposed to be. You follow where I'm going? So
That assists in the whole conversation of pricing too, if you're managing expectations that way.
Yep.
You want the value of what it brings to the transaction or market knowledge, you're asking $100,000 too much.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think the important thing is in our listing presentation stuff in the toolkit printouts, one of them is a price triangle. I don't know if you've seen it, but the higher the price, the less buyers, the longer it's going to take, right? And so I think the important thing is, as you talk to them about a partnership, as you talk about a team, you're going to tell them this is the range that I think your house should sell, and this is the low. Meaning, if we do that, we're going to, probably be able to sell it pretty quickly because a lot of people are going to be interested in it. And this is the high, which meaning, I'm okay pricing it here, but you got to understand it's going to take us some time. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you go above my high, we got to have a conversation, because we're now in a place that I think that I can't be as enthusiastic about marketing your house as I would if it's below the high. And if you go below my low, which is kind of the joke, because who's going to go below the low? But if you go below the low, we're going to have a conversation, because you're going to give your house away. And I don't want to see you do that. I want you to price it competitively so we get the most people in and have the best chance of getting a price within that range, okay?
We got a Walmart story for you, a Walmart story.
Yeah. Do you know this?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. So you follow where I'm coming from as it relates to the range?
Yeah, that's much better than saying, you're crazy.
Yeah,
I'm out of
exactly.
here.
Well,
Yeah.
but however, when we talk about, and we'll get to that, but as far as price and things like that, if they are crazy, then you need not be crazy, take it. okay? If they're really, if using Bob's example of they're $100,000 above where it needs to be, you're standing up and not spending any more time with them and saying, you know, page 3, number 5. You're standing up and, you know, probably most of you don't have them anymore, but I used to have a briefcase with all my stuff in it, you know, file folders and everything. And I would just put my stuff in the briefcase and close it and say, you know what, I wish you the best luck, but I'm not your guy. It's just not going to sell there.
Have you done that?
Oh, I absolutely did it. You know, I pushed myself away from, now this is 100 years ago when I was selling, but, you know, I pushed away from the table and stood up and said, you know, I really appreciate your time, but I'm not your guy. And all I can ask you to do is if you market it at that price and it doesn't sell, the listing expires, I hope you'll remember who was honest with you in the first place. And that you'll give me a chance when you're ready to be at the price that I think it's going to sell. Now, if it sells up there, I'll be the first to congratulate you. You know, I did it very nicely. Man, if it sells up there, I'll be the first, you know, I was wrong. And congratulations, but very rarely did that happen. Very, and again, it's that at least it's something is worse than nothing sort of mentality. And what I mean by that is, well, I don't have any listings. So I'm going to take this because I'll have a listing. Well, you're not going to have any more listings because this is going to drive you crazy. And you spend all your time on something that's never going to happen, right? And then you spend 3-4 months doing it and it still hasn't sold and you should get rid of them, but now you don't want to get rid of them because you spent 3 or 4 months trying to, you know, you're in this ridiculous, you know, catch-22 scenario. Much better to release, know that you're right, be confident in your numbers, and be willing to walk away because 95 out of 100 times, you're going to see that thing continue to sit there or begin to come down in price. So,
A quick question?
yeah, sure.
On that example of holding up your briefcase and getting rid of, how many times did you occasionally say, no, wait a minute, Michael, sit back
Oh,
down.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
It's a great.
No, absolutely. You know,
The more
wait,
pleasant
let's talk about it. You know, but more times than not, no, because there was the ones that were $20,000 over, something like that. Yeah, you kind of worked out. You haven't really even stood up. You're just saying, you know, this is going to be hard. And in a certain situation, again, every situation is different. Barb lives over off of Park Street and Locust and over in that area. And maybe let's say she gets an opportunity to get a listing on North Avenue. And you know where North Avenue is, it's on Park Street and it takes you down through this whole neighborhood, right? She gets a chance to get a listing on North Avenue. It's $20,000 overpriced. She said, "Story, Bill, Michael's told me to stand up, blah, blah." Well, in that situation, maybe not. Because the sign traffic that you're going to get from that house, right, is worth it. Your signs in the yard, people are driving by that. However, I'm willing to list it at that price because of your location, because of the visibility. However, in 30 days, if we haven't gotten anything, I want this price to be reduced by $20,000. Are you okay with that? And most people say, yeah, let's give it a shot. It's kind of like the spaghetti cooking technique. We're gonna cook that spaghetti. We're gonna throw it up in the wall. If it sticks, we're good to go, right? And I'm probably offending my problem over here. Oh, okay, good. But the point being is, are you good with that? Yeah, great. Well, here, when we get done with the agreement, here's a form I'm gonna have you sign, dated February 28th or whatever the date is, with a reduction in price. And I'll call you on that day. Hopefully we don't get there because we haven't sold by then. But if not, I'll call you and say, per our post-dated, you know, whatever that form is called, change of status form, I'm reducing the price from $380 to $360. And that's all you have to do versus having to go back and have that same conversation again. So way out, yeah, for sure. But, you know, you get there, you can have that conversation. And in certain situations, you list it a little higher as long as they're willing. Because you can explain to them that we don't do it sooner than we don't do it any sooner than that. We're going to start walking it down through the market. It's going to become stale, and especially right now because the attitude right now is that there's not enough inventory.
Yeah.
God, if this isn't selling, then it's something wrong with it or it's overpriced, right? And so you have to be very careful because you know, it sits there long enough and people start.
What's wrong with it?
I should have done that ahead of time, that having them sign that, because I had clients, I was like the third agent that had it, and they wanted to stay with that same price that it hadn't sold. And they promised me, they would lower it, you know, within a couple weeks. And they didn't, and months went by and they didn't.
Yep.
If you want a different result.
Yeah, they never did, it never sold.
Yep.
And then they didn't even pay me for my, the finding fee for finding them.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so in informal purchasers and licensees whom owner contacts of owner's brokerage relationship with the broker. What are we saying there? Fulfill the terms of this agreement and inform all purchasers and licensees whom owner contacts. Oh, okay, so what this is saying is if I work at NGIC and I got my house on the market and I've listed with Michael, when he's doing that and somebody expresses interest, what you're agreeing to here is I'm going to tell them that I'm listed with Michael Guthrie and Roy Wheeler. I'm not going to be out there trying to sell it myself, right? I am listed. That's what that term says. Now,
I don't get that.
okay. So in other words, you've got exclusive right to represent. So you're representing, you're the listing agent, I'm the seller. What this is saying is I can't go out and start marketing this house like I'm not listed with you, because I've got an agreement that says if I get my house sold, I'm paying you. And so if I'm at the NGIC and I'm putting it on the, you know, electronic bulletin board out there, and somebody says, hey, I'm interested in your house, I have to say, that's great, but I've got an agent that you're gonna have to work with.
Okay.
That's what that's saying. Now, I'm glad you know, said I don't get it, because you could modify your listing agreement. You're gonna pay 6% if it sells. But if that person feels like I've got this network of people that I wanna send it to, and if I bring you a buyer from my network, will you reduce the commission? Well, that's a conversation you can have. If they're not gonna have, if there's another agent, no. If you're gonna bring another buyer that's got an agent, no. But if you bring me somebody who's not an agent, then yes, we might be able to, you know, work something out.
That's pretty cool, because it means it can still be, it's still 3%, maybe even plus, up to 6%.
Right.
Discount to the seller for
Right.
bringing his own buyer.
Right. But the way I would handle it, you know, some agents will just say, yeah, if you do that, you know, we'll reduce it to 5%, right? Or 4.5% or something like that, because you're still doing all the work. Again, remembering that the contract is the easy part. It's all the other stuff, getting it to closing that is tougher. If you don't believe me, ask John Green or Charlie Bindig right now. They've just been walking through their first deal, and both of them, you know, it seemed all cut and dry. And I think John's reported this morning, and Charlie's got this crazy radon thing that I've never heard of. They've done 3 remediations and still don't have it below 4.0. But the point being is, the contract's the easy part is getting it to closing, you know, is where really the hard work comes in. And so you're not saying, you know, so you want to make sure that you're being compensated for the additional work. The way I would do it is to say, Barb, I totally get where you're coming from. And let's do this. We're going to have 6% in here, but if you bring me a buyer and they don't have an agent, and we can't get you your price, then we can talk about me helping make that happen. But I'd rather have the 6% so I can help you with that then, whereas if I discount it now and we get to a certain place, I can't. You follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you've got so you've got a, let's say you've got a $400,000, you've got the listing agreement. Just make this copy, because I'm talking about something and I'll not lose my place, I think. What was I talking about? No, $400,000 house, right? And they bring you a buyer, and there's 6%, so there's $24,000, right? And the person offers, let's say they listed at 400, but they wanted to get 390, right? And they offer 370, right? So we're $20,000 apart, right? So we counter back and we say 395. And it counters back and it's 385. So now we're 385, they wanted 390. So we're only $5,000 apart, right? So, and nobody's willing to budge at that point. We're $5,000 apart. Everybody with me so far? So you go to the seller and you say, look, because I have 6%, how about we do this? You come down to, I should make this too difficult, but you come down to a third of the 5,000. So you come down 1,700. So it's 390 minus 1,700, whatever that is, 380, 37, or 3, or whatever. You follow what I'm saying? You come down, you price 1,700. I get the buyer to come up another, and I'll pitch in 1,700 because I can, because I have that wherewithal. Everybody feels the pain all the way to the end, right? And so that's the way you communicate it. You just say, look, here's what we're going to do. And it's the same thing when somebody's asking for a reduction in commission. Versus the example I just used because of where we are in the thing. Somebody says, I want you to reduce your commission. You say, well, let's make sure we understand what's going on here, okay? Because 6%, 3% of that's out of my control because I'm offering that out to a buyer. And to offer anything less than that to a buyer is going to be a disservice to you. Because everybody's offering at least that, maybe more, right, in most situations. So now you're asking me to reduce my commission, right? And that's the only negotiable part of it. So the point being is that you want me to work really hard for you, and you want me to do all the things I need to do to get your house sold. And therefore, you don't want to tie my hands by reducing the amount of money that I'm going to get. And then you take it one step farther, and you talk about, one, if you ask me to reduce my commission, and I, without really hesitating, wherever said, no problem, I would want you to be worried about listing with me. And they go, well, why is that? Well, because you asked me to give you my money, and I gave it to you. How much of a negotiator am I going to be with your money? If I can't even feel comfortable with my money, why should I negotiate hard for you? And that, I'm telling you, the eyes open up, the lights go on in that situation. If that doesn't work, another one is to say, let me just put you in your place. Not put you in your place, that's not a good one. Let me just put you, let me put myself in your shoes. And your project manager comes to you and says, such and such, you are a great employee, you do great work, and we've got, just found out, we've got this great contract that we just got, and we want you to run it. How would that make you feel? The person said, well, it would make me feel good. How would it make you feel if they then asked you to take a third pay cut while you're doing that project? Well, it wouldn't make me feel good. Why wouldn't it? Because they hired me, they want me to do it because I'm the best to do it, right? Well, I'm the best to sell your house. And what you're doing, you're saying, I'm the best to sell your house, and yet you're asking me to take a third pay cut by reducing my commission from 6 to 5. Both of those are really real live examples that they don't get. You got to understand and assume that they don't understand how you're compensated. They think you're getting all of that 6%. What's that?
Yeah.
6% for just, showing up and shaking hands.
Right, but they're thinking all 6%, and then when you take the 3 off because of the buyer, well, okay, now you got 3. They think you're getting all the 3%, and then you explain to them advertising, insurance, gas mileage, blah blah blah. No, I only get, and then the company gets some. Keep the lights on, blah blah blah. So anyway, going back to where we are, and this is why I like this class, so we can kind of bounce back and forth. But that's why you want to make sure that the seller informs everybody that they have a relationship with you, that they're not outside the lines trying to get this thing sold with cutting you out. And if we go back to page 1, paragraph 3, that's why you put in under the third line, if within 31 days after expiration. Because if you do have a seller that's out there trying to do it, and hey, my listing expires on January 31st, you just hang in there, you'll do this, and we won't have to deal with the agents, right? So that's why you put 31 days in, because if somebody really wants to screw you, excuse me, they can, but they're going to have to wait 31 days to do it, right? Now, again, the caveat, we went through this, but just a reminder, that 31 days is only if they don't list it with somebody else. They can expire on January 31st. They can list it with somebody else on February 1st. That 31 days is gone.
You're out.
You're out. Even if somebody who showed the property while you were listing it buys it the next day, okay? So in that situation, again, you can't always make it happen, but sometimes you can say, look, and especially if it's been a good relationship, it just didn't sell. and they feel bad, but they're just gonna go a different direction. You could say, Yona, I understand that you feel like you need to go in a different direction. I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to get it sold. I've done everything I can. It didn't happen. However, there's one agent that has a buyer that's supposed to be coming back this weekend. Would you do me a favor in your listing and write in that if Michael Marino brings his buyer and we ratify a contract by January 15th, that this listing agreement is void and and if you've got a good relationship, they'll say, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We'll give you that. We'll give you that. And the other agent will understand it. Now, the other agent will say, look, we're not going to do spend any money yet until January 15th here because I don't want to spend money and then lose it, right? And the other thing, again, just another good thought in this in regards to listing, you'll get somebody who wants to list their house. It happens more times with land than it does with houses. But you'll have somebody who wants to list their land, but they think the neighbor wants to buy it.
Oh, God, how many times have we heard that?
Right. And they want to exclude them from the agreement. If the neighbor buys it, then they're going to buy it and you're out. Or you're going to do it for a reduced fee or whatever the case. And that's all well and good. The whole key is you don't want to get in a fight with people, but you want to know what you're going to say. And what you're going to say in that situation is, Barb, I totally understand. That makes great sense to me. But what we need to do is we need to create a sense of urgency for your two neighbors. Okay, what does that mean? Well, today is January 9th. We need to go to them and say to them, if you're going to buy my property, you need to write a contract by January 15th or 22nd, 2 weeks, whatever. And if you don't, my house is going on the market. And so what you do is you get the listing agreement signed on January 9th, but in other terms, page 6, paragraph 18, you're going to put in that should such and such and such and such purchase this property prior to January 22nd. This listing agreement is null and void and, released. And property will not go in the MLS or begin to be marketed by a realty company until January 22nd, right? Now you can start doing some things, but the point being is, again, it's a team. We're creating strategies and instead of, pushing back, I say, I totally get where you're coming from. I would do the same thing. However, this is what you want to do. You want to put a sense of urgency in that. One, if they're going to buy it, then they need to tell you they're going to buy it. And they need to, put up or shut up. Two, it's not fair for me to start spending money and marketing it. And 6 months from now, these people buy this property. And I'm out. And in most situations, other than the unreasonable people, they go, that makes sense. If they're unreasonable, meet you. Enjoyed it and, you have fun. Find somebody else that's willing to leave that open-ended. I'm not willing to do it. It's not willing to do it. Unless, of course, it's on a major intersection and you can put up a sign and maybe get some, traffic from it before that can happen again. But those are exceptions. Those aren't the rules. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah, and particularly since land, it's most likely land, because neighbors typically in the country are your some prime prospects because over the years, they maybe.
Well, and they've moved out there for privacy. And if they got an opportunity to be even more private, then they have the financial wherewithal to do it. And especially if there's like division rights on that property, and all of a sudden they're going to have 5 houses next to them, they may be willing to do something. And they may even go together and buy half of it, right? Follow what I'm saying? I mean, it's to say, okay, look, well, it's going to take some legalese to do that, but there's no reason why the two can't buy that. And especially if you've got division right and split it, and therefore they're protecting themselves.
Sense of urgency is really cool because I'm losing one of this basically expired 31st because the neighbor, who's the logical buyer, has already bought 2 out of 5 lots, has gone behind my back to the seller and said, let's just wait them out and save some money. Now I put 90 days typically rather than 30 days on that, and I didn't know I couldn't, so I decided to tell everybody that's what I do.
That's fine, if it works, it's great, yeah. Okay, so again, another, just real quickly before I get past owner's duties, another thing that shouldn't be your duty is getting keys made. Just a simple little thing. I'm saying, you don't want to come back tomorrow with a lockbox. I need a key to put in it. I need an extra key to keep in my office in case this one gets lost. You know, for some reason, we think that we're not just real estate agents, but we're servants, right?
It's also a reasonable request.
We're seller's staff. That you're, oh, don't worry about that, I'll go to the hardware store and do that. Now, if you want to, that's great, but that's another hour of your life that you get a key made where they should be doing it. So that just those kinds of things. All right, broker's duties. Broker agrees to make commercially reasonable efforts to obtain a purchaser for the property during the initial period of time and any extension thereof. That's very interesting. I've never read that way before. I had to read it twice because I thought I read it wrong. Make commercially reasonable efforts. I'm guessing that means in a business-like manner. So it's not like it's 24/7. You know, it's not like you're, doing stuff at 3 o'clock in the morning, although some of us
Does it
do.
mean also put up a sign?
No, because that comes in later. We're getting to that in another paragraph, but I think it really is about just saying this, commercially versus privately, that you're going to do it within, a business-like manner. I'm going to make a note.
And or in the public sphere, because what if you had a listing that you didn't do anything on, never advertised, no sign, no nothing? Then they'd say you didn't make it commercially reasonably.
No, the agreement here says it doesn't matter how they bring it. They bring it, you're paying. So it couldn't be that, but go ahead, Bill, what were you
I
saying?
would say the public should have known that it's not a secret listing.
Yeah.
No, I just mean, there's no money, but the seller turns to you and says, nobody came by because you never advertised it. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's too drilling down into these two.
Well, I mean, we've got owners that say nobody came by and we did advertise it.
Yeah, right.
I'll find out. That's a great question. I'm gonna ask legal hotline about that. I just never thought about that before. Owner acknowledges that brokers shall disclose to potential purchaser of the property all material adverse facts pertaining to the physical condition of the property actually known by the broker. So again, get into the law of agency for a minute. You as an agent are responsible for what you do know. You're not responsible for what you should have known, what you could have known, what you might have known. Okay? But if you know that the basement leaks, then that needs to be disclosed. Seller doesn't have to. Seller, it's an adverse, it's a caveat emptor state, which means buyer beware. Seller doesn't have to tell you as a listing agent that my basement leaks. They know it leaks, but unless somebody asks them, they don't have to say, now, if I'm the seller and you ask me, does my basement leak? I have to be honest, I can't lie, right? But I can go to the agent and say, I want to get my house sold, and they go through it and never ask a question, and doesn't come up, home inspector doesn't find it. 2 weeks later, it rains, and there's water in the basement, right? Well, did you know that? Well, yeah, I did. But nobody asked me. However, if you know, as the seller told you, then you are held to a higher standard. And you are to disclose. And the reason this is in here is because most sellers don't understand that. Wait, I don't want you to tell people that. Well, I understand why you don't want to tell people that. But the law says that I have to. Now that you've told me, I have to disclose it. Or vice versa, when we were talking about radon a minute ago, once you know that radon is above 4.0 picocuries, you don't have to know what a picocurie is. You just need to know it's above 4.0. And if it is, it has to be disclosed. So I don't want to fix it. And I don't want people to know, let's put it back on the market, we'll sell it again. You can't do it. And the bottom line is, most people are going to ask for it, so it's going to come up again. So let's just get it fixed. You got a seller, a buyer who wants to buy the house. It's only cost you $850, $1,200, whatever it is, and you're done with it.
So what's your feeling about an ethical position? Like, I'd rather know and disclose it and deal with honesty versus don't tell me.
I'm totally on the first part. As you go through my class in regards to, listing as not the agreement, but overall, one of the things I like to do is once they've decided that you are their agent, you got everything taken care of. The first thing you want to do is you want to take, if you haven't already done it in some ways with your two-step program, which we've talked a little bit about, you want to take your legal pad, let's start at the driveway. And now let's walk through the house and let's talk about the things that we're going to get done prior to putting your house on the market, because we want it to look absolutely the best when it goes on the market. We don't want to do it after people tell us, because they may never come back. We want it to look absolutely great. And in that, I want you to tell me the things that you know about this house.
And then do you also say to them, understand that I will be disclosing that your basement leaks?
If,
your roof-
right, if there's adverse material effects, they should know it, but you should have told them that while you were getting this listing agreement signed, that these are some things that I'm gonna have to disclose. And so you're walking through and you see that there's, moisture in the corners or,
I think, excuse me, I think that's what I'm asking though. So are you giving them the opportunity not to tell you deliberately?
no, I'm saying, let's go through the house and you tell me everything about the house. If they choose not to tell me,
But you're also pointing out up front saying, anything you do tell me is gonna be disclosed.
right, yeah,
So
Sounds
when
like
you
a
don't
signal,
tell.
sounds like a signal to me. that-
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me.
yeah.
You want me.
Don't tell them.
Well, no, I think it's the opposite. I'm saying I want you to tell me.
I just wanted to
And if
say-
somebody's going to, really not tell me after I've done this, right, then I not only have I said, there are certain things that I need to disclose, and we're gonna walk through your house and I want you to tell me everything about your house. So two, if they choose not to tell me at that point, right, one,
There's a trust issue.
they're gonna do that on their own. Two, if it comes up, you've got substantiation that, hey, here's my paperwork that I went through and we went through and it never came up. Go ahead, Joan.
Typically what I do is, I do make them aware of the fact, if there's, first of all, I go through a whole list of things that potentially home inspectors look for, and also purchasers look for. So let's just do a kind of walk through. And the mechanicals on the basement, the basement has leaks, blah, 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 blah. So, but I also tell them that, look, I know you have to disclose, I have to disclose, but as long as it's taken care of before the home is actually listed.
That's right.
We don't need to worry about it.
That's right. You
So
don't
why
have
don't we
to
get it
disclose
done
it.
now?
Yep.
The question I do have for you, though, Michael, is, so what if he doesn't fix it? What if the basement is not fixed by the time we list the property? Do I have to put it in the listing agreement, or where does this go?
Well, where it would go, what I would do, I wouldn't put in the MLS,
Not in the MLS.
but I would put, like in the basement, I would have a sign that says, heavy rain has caused some moisture in the basement, cellar in the midst of getting it fixed.
So it's not
So
part of.
you're not putting the MLS so that they won't come and look at it, but it's there. Or you could, I'm not advising this, but you could not even do it then, but you could wait till they write a contract. And then when you write a contract, you could say, hey, by the way, there has been water in this basement. You might want to have your home inspector look at that when you're here. You're disclosing it prior to them buying the house. Some agents are going to go, wait a minute. Why did you wait this long? Well, the reason I waited this long is you might not have written the contract if you know. But you've complied with disclosure in that situation. Because you're saying, thank you for writing a contract, and when you sign it, whether your seller signs it or counters it, you put in, I know you're gonna have a home inspection, have your home inspector look and give you an idea of what to expect in regards to moisture in the basement, because we've had some of them.
So it does not need to go into the disclosure statement? So you don't reference it anywhere? How does anybody know that I know about that?
Well, again, what I'm saying, the best thing to do, the best thing to do is you put it in the disclosure, but what I want to do is I want to get them in the house.
Sure.
So they like the house, but we got some issues with the basement, so then they can get somebody in and look at that and see if it's an issue whereas if I put that in the MLS, I put in the disclosure, that's gonna be my last resort house. All right, it's kind of like, people don't like it, but I would much rather have the people in the house, and then decide whether or not they like that road in the back behind their house. I'm not gonna put house backs to a nice busy street,
No.
right? I'm being facetious, but my point being is, I get in that, and people get in the house, and I'm not gonna include a picture from the deck out over the street, right? People get to the house and they go, I really like this house, and you know what, that doesn't bother me that much. But if you put in backs to a busy street or a picture that, I don't wanna live back. And the example, and you've heard me use this example before, the neighborhood that I farmed back in the day, 275 half-acre lot houses. The future, dating me, but the future Springfield bypass, now it's called the Fairfax County Parkway or Route 7100, it changed, whatever, went behind one of the streets in my neighborhood. Future, went behind, was going to go behind. That street, Archdale Drive, on that side of the road, just cratered in price. Cratered, the average sales price was 100,000 at that point, couldn't crater that much. But they wouldn't sell, or they would sell for less than the rest. Once that road went in and they saw the buffer that they still had, and then it didn't bother. You go into that neighborhood now and those houses backing to those sell for as much as others. Maybe not the most exclusive cul-de-sac lots or whatever, but they literally got their price back because people saw what it was. They didn't have to imagine, that the road was gonna be right behind them so they could sell lemonade to the people as they went by, You follow what I'm saying? So I'd rather get them in the house, let them see the house, and then let them see what.
I once bought a house because I loved it so much and it had a bad roof. But I was able to negotiate the price down $30,000.
Right, exactly.
So I said, I'll take care of it.
Yep. No, exactly.
The buyer said to the seller was, I'm not doing the roof. Not after all this time. I said, all right, I'll do that. I love your house.
I had one that's a little grayer than that, we worked on, and had under the rug, in the hardwood floor, with a big black spot. So I didn't want to put it in the MLS.
So what black, it wasn't just the discolor of the floor, there was actually a spot that they were
There were
covering up.
spots in the thing, so what it did was just pull the rug over, and when anybody showed it, it was an obvious, it didn't pull the rug off the spot.
Right.
So they could see it.
Exactly.
And then never wound up being an issue, but I wondered, where do you disclose that?
That's an honest way.
No, well, but that's how you disclose it. In that situation, and it needs to be visible. So as an example, reason I asked, this carpet, if you pull it up, over here is gonna be different color than what's underneath.
Sure.
That's normal wear and tear.
Yeah.
So if a buyer says, oh, wait a minute, I want these floors to finish because of blah, 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 no. I'm not hiding anything.
I run into that and you never get it out.
No, you can't get it out. You gotta actually replace.
You can sand that down at the-
When I went to hardware, hardware floor, that's what they told me. It's like, I didn't want somebody to walk in, when they do their walkthrough.
That was exactly the way it is.
you know?
And, again, instead of in the MLS, oh, by the way, note that in the dining room, there's a huge black spot on the hardwood floors, right? They come in, they see it, they can decide whether that's a deal killer for them or not.
But I think there's a difference, Mike,
Sure.
between this is a cosmetic item versus a roof that's
Structural.
collapsing. I think,
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a little gray.
so I mean, this is a little bit of, I think this leaves a little bit, room for interpretation, this all material adverse effect. What actually is that?
Right.
Is it cosmetic? Is it
Well,
structural?
interestingly enough, and not part of the pun, because the color is gray, but polybutylene pipes.
Mhm.
You talk to one attorney and they'll tell you it's not, you talk to another attorney, tell
This
you
is
it
a
is.
question.
Yeah. And the fine thing is, if you've never had a problem with
Yeah.
them, then you don't have a problem. But if you've had a problem, now it's an adverse material effect, because someplace you had a breach. However, most attorneys will tell you that that's not a hidden material adverse effect, because when you open up the cabinets, you see them. When you go in the basement, you see them, right? You see what it is, and therefore you're not hiding anything. Now, there's certainly buyers that said, I want this replaced, or I'm not gonna buy the house. And I had sellers that say, no, I'm not doing it, and then other sellers that will replace the plumbing. Somebody was just telling me, yesterday, who was it? Mike Peters was telling me that, the person had just redone all the plumbing in 2013, and their pipes froze yesterday.
Oh, geez.
And so,
They had to come
they've
forward
got-
here.
yeah, so, bummer, right?
We have a situation right now, as of last night. When we bought our house, in the realtor remarks on the MLS, it explained that that neighborhood, because of the roots system, neighbors periodically, every couple of years, have to have rotor-rooter come out and take care of it. So
Because the roots go through the
Yeah,
plumbing.
right.
yes, so, because, when we did our inspection, it was a, as is, but we did the inspection, and sure enough, that showed that there was water, that needed to be taken care of. So they spent about $700, the seller, taking care of that. But, and it was supposed to be only every couple of years, well, now, a little over a year later, come back, so.
that lives in the sewers, in the water.
What do you mean it's come back? What does it do?
The water, and that, Dick said it's the sewer, I mean, it's the water right by the washer and dryer, and then there's a drain in the middle of the laundry room,
It's cast iron pipe, probably.
and it's kind of backed up.
Maybe probably got a willow tree out there or something.
You know, my father,
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Oh, so when it's not clearing the way it's supposed to because there's a root blocking it? Oh.
So we're hoping the 210 will help cover it. But, and it's kind of urgent because he said, don't take a shower. Oh, you're kidding.
Wow, yeah.
Don't flush the toilet any more than you have to. Oh, you're kidding. So,
my father had a willow tree go through his basement.
really,
And the torch.
Yeah, well,
The deeper you're going, even stronger.
No, they're shallow.
They're
Oh, they
shallow.
are?
That's
Yeah,
why
they're
it's-
They're shallow, but
Yeah.
they'll go through
and
cement.
soft maple. Yeah, I don't
No,
know of any. Oaks go down.
A lot of water.
Because they're so shallow, because they're so
Well, they don't
superficial.
shallow, like you said, but they also search for water. Water and pipe.
Plant them there.
What were you gonna say, Yogi?
You and I work on a very interesting
Yeah.
situation which pertains to underground storage tanks, by the way, which,
Yeah.
again, I have another situation where the current owner was not disclosed or didn't ask the question if there was underground storage tanks on the property. The listing agent, after he listed the property, finally did ask the question because he looked at the survey and they were marked on the survey. So this comes back to what you and I, you actually had to go through because
Right, yeah,
this was your daughter's house.
Right.
with the underground storage.
Are you talking about disclosure or
Disclosing,
liability?
disclosing and what exactly.
Was the seller saying, hey, I didn't even know that, so I'm not liable, because you can't slough off liability like that.
Not once they own it. I mean, once he owns it, the fact that he didn't
Even if he didn't
know,
know.
too bad, but now that you're selling it, you absolutely have a disclosure issue. Yeah. And again, Gray, in that situation, you depend, some people will say that, if you make sure that you've done your test and there's no oil leak, and you've made sure that the tank is empty, and you fill it with sand, or, that you complied. But there's some people that know, I want that Jody Mills. You probably don't remember this, Jody had this beautiful house off of 250, like 6 houses in a cul-de-sac, and Dottie and I were actually tempted by it. This was years ago, but you drove up in a beautiful house and looked back over toward Martha Jefferson. And they had just done this incredible landscaping, and there was an underground storage tank in the island on the circular drive that had been abandoned properly, but the buyer was just really worried about it. So she had to dig that sucker, ruin the landscape, and dig this thing up and pull it out, and then just, it was what, they wanted it to buy the house, so, so. All right, so we got through 5 and 6. That's what's funny about this. I was thinking, I will tell you that, and if anybody's listening, I made copies of 4 pages. And I was thinking we were gonna get, through the, opt out. I thought we were gonna get, lockback, big deal. And we were probably gonna get to number 9, and here we are. We'll be on number 7 next time. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow, maximize open house at 10, and then the 11th is if you need PL or CE credit.
Yeah, I'm
You're going. I think John Green's going.
I might go for the whole day too.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Oh, really? Nice.
I think I don't think you have a choice. I don't think you have to. You could go, but you're not going to get all the credit. You won't get any credit if you don't
I
think
guess
it's.
we'll go back and forth.
Yeah.
You need to go there, otherwise
Yeah. John Green, that car. John Green's going too.
Amy Trumbull is teaching.
Something at 4 o'clock today?
There's a luxury. Is that today or tomorrow? I think that's tomorrow or Thursday maybe.
Oh.
Wait, I can tell you because I just sent it to Mary to send out to you all.
Luxury what?
There's a webinar for luxury portfolio, just to understand all the options, opportunities for, let's see here.
It's good to see you.
Oh,
Good to
see
see
ya.
Mike.
What?
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I know that.
And Michael's in his office.
Yeah, here we go. Listing, maximize open house tomorrow, all day VR. And then, this is Thursday. Thursday is all day VAR. And luxury portfolios at 4 o'clock. So see Chris, because he's the one who's gonna set that up if you need a link to it. it's worth it. It's an hour, but it's, they're doing some really good stuff. And when you get that over $1 million listing, you're gonna wanna know what that's all about.
Yeah.
Listings increased a little bit.
I think that, I mean, what I'm gathering is that people have them and they're gonna be coming on middle of the month, so to speak. I think you're gonna start seeing it now, but very little has come on the first 10 days.
What did you want?
Yeah. But like Tom,
100, you said?
Tom Nolke was in yesterday saying he sold a farm to somebody who was too big for them, so he's gonna be listing the farm, they're gonna downsize, so that's a nice. But I think, those are the things that now that we're through the holidays, for some people, the holidays didn't end until yesterday. So I think we'll start seeing more.
Ciao.
We are
See ya.
ready to go.
Bye, Michael.
March is when they start. The weather.
Good to see you. Say hi.
Good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
You just back? Bye-bye.
You don't have to read this. I just picked it up.
So, are you back?
4 years ago, right there to my house.
Hey, speaking of which, have you seen Darkest Hour yet?
Yes.
Have you seen that?